Let's do it.
Welcome to the Alain Guillot podcast, a podcast about life, leadership, and money matters. Our guest today is Tanvir Bhangoo. Tanvir is a best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur. He's the CEO of TB Momentum, a leadership and consulting firm that works with multinational businesses to help them transform and adapt to an ever-changing world. And today we will be speaking about his book, The Pro Business Mindset, How to Lead Amid Disruption and Chaos. Tanvir, thank you so much for joining us today.
Alain, pleasure to be here.
So I like that you have your book, your business life and your sports life, you intertwine them together for people who are sports fanatics to make that relationship. And of course, there are so many relationships between teamwork in an athletic format and the business world. And that's what you are bringing forward with your book. I wonder if we could start with your past. You open your book talking about your origin. Your parents are from India, and then you had some problems adapting at a given moment. So take us back to that moment in your life.
Yeah. Thanks for asking me here, Alain. So I was born in Canada, as we were just chatting before the podcast. Born in a small city called Toronto, and then my parents decided to take us back to India in Punjab when I was 6 years old. I had two younger sisters who were three, and the other one was just born. So we went back to India for 5 years. Great time, loved it, learned the culture, learned how different the world can be at the same time across different continents. Really appreciated the way people live there and the culture. And then when I was 11, as I talk about in the book, our parents brought us back to Canada, back to this time a smaller city called Brampton, north of Toronto. And so we came there, and I was just starting out in grade 7 when we came back in 2001. And yeah, I think, as you said, I had some tough time adapting to the culture because I felt that when I came to Canada, what I had seen before I left versus what I came to after 5 years was totally different. I think the friends, making new friends in grade 7, grade 8 is tough, especially when you come from a background where you have a different system of schooling from grade 1 to 7. Some of the cultural differences were very, very unique in that sense, and also because some of the language issues as well. I wasn't in English school in India, but still culturally, and I think the level was a little different. So that was definitely tough. And then also, I had a growth spurt. I talk about it in the book as well. I grew really fast in grade 7. I hit 6 feet, and I was about 190. Very, very quickly within 6, 7 months. And I wanted to play sports, but I tried out for the flag football team, and I got cut because I was not fast enough. So that was disappointing. I thought maybe I'd make some friends there, but hey, I wasn't fast enough for that sport. But luckily, I saw a pamphlet in the mail for Brampton Minor Football Association, and that's where I'm like, you know what? I need to play this sport. I like this sport. It's different. It's unique. I can use my size to my strength. I'll make some friends. And that was how I kind of got into football back in 2002. And the rest, yeah, you know from the book.
Okay, well, you were lucky to grow up first of all, in Canada, and in a place that is mostly culturally diverse. You are not a
Yes.
white person, and there are some places in North America that if you are not you have a tougher road ahead of you. And then that also applies to the business world. Yes, businesses are becoming more open and diverse, but still people who are not white, they still have a little bit of extra effort to put to make sure that they are just as good as the other ones.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could, I assume you didn't face any disadvantages growing up in Canada, but can you put that in perspective in the business world? A person who is not white, if they have a bigger challenge than others?
Yeah, I think like 2020 onwards, it's just a big eye opening for everyone, right? That there are differences, whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not, there are differences out there. And some groups are at a disadvantage versus others. And you're right, Canada is a lot further ahead than some areas in the world. And from a personal standpoint, in even when I was actually playing sports, I'll actually touch on two things. The first problem that I actually saw was less about others not letting a person of color or person of minority or somebody brown from India. It wasn't so much that they were not open to letting somebody play football. It was also the fact that our culture, the Indian culture, did not really encourage someone to go out there and seek these opportunities. Every single one of my cousins back in 2001 or 2002, all they would play was soccer. And if I had just played soccer, I would have been one of the same kids who had played soccer, didn't enjoy it, and I would have been on the same path. But my parents were, glad that they listened to me. I wanted to try something new. So I do think that there is a bit of lack of opportunity in our own selves, in our own culture. That hey, just because we haven't done it before, we're a little reluctant. That sometimes might seem like that it's a disadvantage, but a lot of times it's just because we haven't given it the shot. Now, that being said, there absolutely are times when, and we've seen this in the NFL, in all major sports, even the Olympics, where there is a disadvantage for you if you are of color. We can do a whole different podcast on this. But to your question, in the business world, I think there are definitely challenges. There's nothing that I personally seen in my life. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of some great groups, great school. I had some great mentors wherever I worked that really encouraged, diversity and inclusion. But which also I think was the case that I was in Canada, and Canada is a country that absolutely, loves the diversity and inclusion. But I have friends and I have colleagues that have told me stories that this stuff is still prevalent, and there's something that we all have to do something about it as the leaders of tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good. On the other hand, people coming from India, somehow they have been able to break through so many barriers. I mean, if we see some of the big, most notorious CEOs of our times, like
Mm,
Google, for example, Twitter, the past CEO of PepsiCo, all have been from
yeah.
Indian origin. So, yeah, congratulations on that resilience or ambition that some of you Indians compatriots have.
You know what? Is not. I don't know what it is, and maybe we should do a study on this. But I think coming from a country, and this is what I've seen in my 5 years when I was there. When you come from a country where there is a lack of opportunity, when you come to a land of thousands of opportunities, you really remember where you came from, and you really want to make sure that whatever you have for your kids. For my parents, wanted to make sure that their kids, me and my sisters, were set and made sure that we had the right education. So they worked their ass off, and that almost instills the same types of work ethic in me. That hey, if my parents came from nothing, they built such a great career and gave us such a great life. I've seen that side of the family, that side of life in India. So if as long as I work hard, good things will happen. I think that's the perspective that you get it when you do come from a country like India, which always helps to keep you pushing forward.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, this is a controversial issue because you want, as a government, you want to provide as much opportunities to its citizens as possible. Okay. And then here comes someone from, I don't know, let's say India or Bangladesh or who knows what,
Yeah.
and with a hunger, and this person comes, and the first year they have a corner store, and then 5 years later they have 5 houses, and there's this
Yeah.
eagerness. Well, I mean, it's just, I hate to generalize, but there is the other camp that says, okay, well, I'm going to collect unemployment because unemployment benefits are quite generous here. And I can
Yeah.
cruise by and, just get by without too much effort.
Yeah, again, I'm not in the position to comment on. I think it's a controversial issue on what exactly happens. But I'll tell you this: I do know people that have come from nothing, from all parts of the world. I have great friends from Southern America, India, Pakistan, who have made great careers. I also know people who came from the same areas of those countries that actually did not make it very far. And I don't think it's a matter of less opportunities or something that the government has to do differently. I think it's also half the battle is attitude.
Mm.
And that I think is what, back to the book, the pro business mindset, it doesn't matter if you have everything given to you on a silver spoon or you come from nothing. It's the fact that if you have the right attitude, it doesn't matter the resources, the circumstances, you will make things happen, but it does take hard work.
Yes, I think instead of looking at cost and correlation, what I see with certain immigrants is that they already took a huge risk to leave everything behind that they know to
Mhm.
come to experiment of course they already have this attitude that I have to succeed no matter what. And of course some get find it comfortable and say, okay, I don't have to work that hard. But other ones who self-selected themselves to come to many people
Uh-huh.
come with the dream of, oh, I'm gonna make it big, and they don't stop until they make it big. So yeah, it's a self-selecting
Absolutely.
group.
And that's also why I think, to add to your point, Elaine, why why athletes always end up doing well in, let's say, sales roles, or in my case, a career that I never had training for, which is technology. It's because the same principle that you just mentioned, that an athlete knows what it takes to work hard, what it takes to
Mm.
consistently every single day wake up, rain or shine, put in the work. And that attitude it can be found anywhere, but athletes almost learn it because you're forced to actually repeat the same processes, the trainings, the nutrition, the seminars, the film reviews every single day. So you almost get that ingrained in your head. That same attitude you can find in immigrants, the same attitude you can find in people who are born and raised in Canada. But that's another reason why I think it's all about the attitude. Attitude is
Mm.
what dictates your actions. And if you take the right actions, success sooner or later becomes, one of your friends.
Yeah, another thing that we could learn from athletes is that they know how to face failure. I used to be a wrestler,
Oh, wow.
and I used to just lose all the time, But guess what? I lost. An opponent smeared my face against the mat. I broke my nose, and then the next day I had to go and train again and run my laps and do my exercises and face perhaps the same
Absolutely.
opponent a month later, and just give it a bigger effort. And if you cancel this attitude, like, I'm gonna fail down, I'm gonna fail and fail and fail again, but I'm going to continue trying until I succeed. And people who don't have this athlete mentality, after they fall down for the fifth time, they say, okay, I have
I
enough.
gave up.
I'm gonna cash my chips and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you know what? I actually, I think you're spot on. So two things here. One is what athletes do well, and this is not athletes alone. This is also great teams. Is that they know how to rebound from failure. So, for
Mm.
example, if you lost a game, everybody knows Tom Brady. He loses a game. Even last year when they did win the Super Bowl, they lost a bunch of games in the regular season, but it doesn't mean that they give up on the season. They come back, they fix what went wrong, they shake off the negative feeling, and they move forward. The second thing that great athletes and leaders in this world that I've seen, that I've worked for, do is they actually separate out the types of failures. There are two types of failures today that I believe everybody should know as part of the toolbox. One is a missed play failure, the other is a missed season failure. Missed play failures are small failures that actually help you propel forward. So, for example, if I had to, let's say, make $1 million a year as part of the business, and I tried to launch a product, which took me about a month, the product didn't go do too well. I only made, let's say, $10,000, but I learned something about my business. That's a missed play failure, but that's okay because now you know something that you're going to try differently to try to help you make your high level goals. Missed season failure is when you actually miss on the long term failure. And if you encourage missed play failures, the smaller failures, you have a higher chance of making long term objective. And that's the same thing in sports where it's okay to drop a ball in practice. It's okay to miss a game here or there, but you're going to learn and you're going to come back stronger. Same in business. If you don't take risks and you don't encourage failure, you're never going to take the right shots that actually help you go leaps and bounds forward. So
Okay, well, Tanvir, I have the feeling that if you, you and I could have a conversation 2 hours long, but since we don't have 2 hours, let's focus a little bit about the book. I mean, I have so many more questions about your life
please.
story, but can you tell us what can the listeners expect to find in this book?
Absolutely. So the pro business mindset is my reverse engineering of the framework that I saw myself apply in business. So I was fortunate enough to be part of organizations that promoted and rewarded meritocracy. I was able to grow very quickly in my career. I was a VP of tech at the age of 29. When I looked back at what allowed me to lead these great teams, what allowed me to help propel myself in this career, is very similar to what I had learned in football, which was in college. We won a national championship. And I said, you know what? I need to take these learnings, these principles that I've been applying in my career in this digital transformation environment and share them with the world. So I actually went back and I reverse engineered these concepts into what I call the pro methodology. The P is the postseason, the R is the regular season, the O is the off season. And in a nutshell, the book takes you through the three stages, starting with the off season first, where you have to build your foundations, whether an individual or a team. Build your playbooks, build your teams, build adaptability. Then you go to the regular season, just like a sports team would. This is where you identify what are you going to execute on. How do you block out the noise? How do you not get distracted? How do you celebrate the failures, even though they might not be, the best of the time? And then finally, the third stage is the postseason, where how do you adjust? How do you make sure that if somebody leaves your team, you can continue on the path forward? And when things get really tough, how, as a leader, do you show your team the promised lands? So basically, the book takes you through a playbook that, as an individual, as a team, you can apply to leading in environments such as today, this post pandemic world, where things are changing fast, they're chaotic, they're uncertain, and plans change every 6 months.
Wow. Um, at the beginning of the book, you talk about how your coach pulled you aside and
Yeah.
just told you about how much progress you have been made, and this kind of encouragement propel you to continue fighting and continue training. So you had a great coach, and there is a in the business world. I mean, it's very important to have a good coach as well. However, it's very easy to find a good coach or to visualize a good coach in the sports arena. Every coach, everyone knows about the accomplishment of this coach and the other one. But in the business world, I don't know how to differentiate who is a good coach and who just have a fancy, good-looking website or great website developer.
Yeah. You know what? That's a great question. Nowadays, you really don't know, who is great in terms of whatever they might be saying that they're great at, right? It's very easy to put up a website, put some great pictures on there, become an expert. Now, if we take a step back and, for anybody listening, if you're looking for a coach on, let's say, leadership, you're looking for a coach on, let's say, becoming a speaker, or you want a coach to help you accelerate your corporate career, or even a leader that you're reporting into at work, the best people I've seen are the people that actually take interest in you. And it's very simple. Some of the great leaders that I've had, you can tell in 5 minutes Do they actually listen to you? Do they
Mm.
actually ask you the right questions about, what is it that you care about? And do they have the best interest in mind? If somebody really cares about you, they will listen to you more than they speak. They will actually, you know, ask you, how are you doing? And generally ask you, if you do say, I'm not doing too well, generally care about helping you fix that problem. I think it starts with empathy and caring about people at an individual level. Everything else comes later.
Okay, another difficult question that I have is you talk about the importance of having the right people in the right roles. Okay,
Yes.
and we also are living through a moment where you want to be as inclusive as possible. But if you want to have a cohesive team, you cannot accept just anyone either. I mean, I'll give you an example. In our team, we have someone who is an anti-vaxxer, and brings these ideas or belief to the teams. And instead of speaking about how we can perform better, the conversation becomes, oh, Bill Gates and George Soros are trying to manipulate the world. At a
Yeah.
given moment, it becomes disruptive, and no matter how good this person is at her job, it feels like it's not a great influence in the team. So I guess, how do you balance having being inclusive as much as
Yeah.
possible, but at the same time having the right person in the right roles?
Yeah. Look, everybody has the right to their opinion. And, whether you want to get vaccinated or not get vaccinated, that's personal choice. I think it starts a lot earlier, Lane. It starts when you're building your team. Now,
Mm.
you absolutely want to have people that have different opinions. You want that. You want people that challenge you.
Mm.
You want people that say, I don't agree with you. But you also want people that at the end of the day say, you know what, as a team, let's make each other better because we have this one goal that we want to achieve, which is win the championship. And it starts by hiring the right people based on the values, potential, and grit versus experience alone. So anytime you're building a team, look at, if I hire this person, how does he or she fit in with everybody else? How does this person respond to your personal leadership style? How will this person challenge my personal team? Now, if the values are there, if this person really cares about making your team better, if this person is a great locker room presence, and if this person actually brings honesty and humility to the team, then please bring as much diversity as possible. If the values are there, you're going to be okay. Now, if somebody has the wrong values, they come in with their hidden agenda, if they're not going to get along with the team well, then even if they have the same opinions as you, then something else starts happening, which is politics. And
Right.
that is also actually more deadly than difference in opinion. So it all starts with, when you're building out your team, having the right personalities that can gel together in the locker room.
Wow, it's not easy being a team leader. Okay, just one more questions, and this is once again striking a balance. So when we speak about in your book, we speak about setting high goals, about beating the other team, this and that. But I think sometimes when we make a sport analogies to the business world, we run into the trap that in the sports world, we have a season, and for this season we want to be the best, and then the athletes take a break, whatever, and then the next season is perhaps a new set of players or whatever. But in the business world, business are here to stay 20, 30, 40 years. So you cannot double your revenues every year.
Mm-hmm.
We're not Apple, and even Apple cannot double
Yeah,
their
yeah.
revenue. So how do we balance this? Okay, we have to achieve these goals, short-term goals, with the long-term objective of an organization.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. I think, first of all, you have to have reasonable long-term goals. You have to, a lot of times it's like, okay, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, where do we want to be? Then it's about breaking those down into smaller chunks. Now, for example, let's say a sports team's goal is to win, football teams win a Super Bowl. Can you imagine if the coach every single day of practice kept telling you, you have to do this because you want to build a Super Bowl? Guys, let's go to practice. We want to win the Super Bowl. Can you imagine how depressing that would be? How much pressure that would bring to the team? Because you're always worrying about the championship. Instead, what great coaches do is we got to win the Super Bowl, which means we have to get better at the basic fundamentals, which means you have to watch film, you have to go to the weight room, and we have to take it 1 week at a time. That becomes something you can look forward to. You can get better. And before you know it, you're 8 weeks into the season and you've come a long way. Similarly, in business, write down your 3 year goals, your 1 year goals, but then break them down into smaller chunks that you believe you can achieve this week, next month, and then celebrate those things. They might not be the 10x revenues you're looking for in 3 years, but maybe you actually found a way to get there in these 6 months. Celebrate it. That's the only way you can keep going forward. Otherwise, it's unsustainable and you're going to burn yourself out.
If you indulge me, one more question. So you encourage the thinking outside of the box. And,
Yes.
This is so much easier said than done, because if we are always living in the boxes, but I find great leaders and these are amazing leaders. But for example, Netflix, while everybody else is competing in the streaming worlds in the United States, Netflix is thinking of dominating globally. And we think of Elon Musk, who is thinking of going all the way to Mars. He doesn't just want to make it to the moon.
Yeah,
He wants
yeah.
to go. And Jeff Bezos, he doesn't want to be a good retailer to sell CDs and books. He wants to be the everything store. So it's just these leaders, of course, they have achieved such a great success because they are thinking way up, outside of the box. But not all of us are Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or, how do we, and I guess it takes little steps to get but yeah, tell us your perspective.
I actually think the reason they're able to think outside the box, Elaine, is not because they're geniuses or they are, super creative people. They're just like you and I, but they figured something out. They have great teams that report into them and they're around them. They're surrounded by great people. And second, they create a safe space for them to think creatively. Now, if I told you to think creatively, but then when you tell me it's one of your ideas, I'm like, Elaine, that's bullshit. Are you ever going to come back to me with another idea? Probably not. But if I'm like, well, that's a great idea. Let's try it out. Let's spend some money on it, see what happens. Now somebody else is going to say, hey, I like what Elaine's doing. Let me try my idea. So the key is to have the team under you, around you, that is creative, to encourage risk taking, but put in place guardrails that you can keep track of and build a safe space for people. It starts at the leadership.
Wow. Okay, Tanvir, I think I took you in all kind of tangents. I apologize. So in order to bring us back and close this podcast, I wonder if there is something that you would like to bring up that I didn't ask you.
No, I think, great. Thanks for having me on, Elaine. Again, in this disruptive world, a lot of people that I talk to, a lot of our clients, they're always asking, what is the secret to leading to building playbooks? Given the unpredictability that we have, the uncertainty, I always go back to what my coach used to say, that championships are won in the off season. The better we prepare now, the easier it's going to be to change direction and pivot when things get tough. So, there's another way of saying it is spend the time up front, prepare, build your toolbox, then it gets a lot easier, whatever life throws at you. And that is what the pro business mindset is built on.
Well, then the last question, Tanvir, is first of all, tell us one more time the title of the book, and then where can people follow the work that you're doing right now?
Absolutely. The Pro Business Mindset, How to Lead Amid Disruption and Chaos is the book. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Indigo. And you can follow me on tanvirbhangoo.com. You'll meet me there, Insights blog. We have a podcast as well. And you can also follow me on LinkedIn. I share some insightful stories and content on a regular basis.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Elaine. Pleasure to be here.